Hi, my name's Anthony Turner. I'm talking with Hunter Leonard here today. Hunter, in a previous interview we were speaking about marketing in the general sense and your RAPID program of how people can actually look at, research, analyse, plan, implement, and then make sure that they're doing the metrics to understand what's happening. Yeah. One of the things that questions that we've sort of got as a result of that interview is that I'm often, as a small business owner, asked to by, say, a media outlet. It could be radio, it could be a local newspaper or something. Oh look, we've got this great deal for you. If you spend $2,000 or $3,000 with us, we will get your name out there. Blah 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 blah. One of the question from the person was, is that such a good idea or is it not such a good idea? And if I was to do something, what are sort of the pitfalls and the benefits?
Yeah. Okay. So, first thing I usually recommend to small business owners is don't do things ad hoc.
Okay.
So if you've done your marketing plan or the basics of it and got a few surveys, you'll have a bit of an understanding of your customer,
yes.
What you're trying to say,
yes.
And then what sort of offer you might make to get, or a call to action you might have.
Yes.
So there's two almost diametrically opposed objectives between media and a business owner.
Okay.
So the media person, like salesperson, media, etc., their main aim is to sell space.
Yes.
Space or time. So it's space in a newspaper ad, which could be a strip or a full page or whatever. So
that's their product, that's what they're selling, that's what they get paid to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In radio, it's 15 seconds or 30 seconds in a schedule.
Yes.
So once they've done that, their job is done, if you like. They've done their job, they've reached their objective. The business owner then, their main objective is to get customers from that spend. So certainly nothing wrong with radio or print or whatever if it's the right choice for your particular business.
Yes.
At an absolute minimum, you'd want the radio station choice to be, for you to make sure they have your target audience.
Yes.
So if you're targeting 50 plus, you're probably more likely to be on gold than on mix, for example.
Right.
That's a minimum.
Yes.
But you want to make sure that whatever you spend, you're getting a return from.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do with the price that you pay for the radio. So there's no such thing as a cheap deal. There's only an effective deal.
Yes.
Sometimes with radio, it can take several weeks of radio to be able to build up if you like, an awareness with your audience. So you can't just do one ad in a paper or a week's worth of advertising on radio and expect it to work. Mm-hmm. So you want to be ready for it. You also want to make sure you've done your planning, at least to understand the basics of stuff. Again, nothing wrong with an experiment, but sometimes you've got to really understand the fact that one ad in a newspaper is not as good as, one large ad is not as good as 3 small ads, for example, because there's a bit of technology around consistency of that and getting through all of this messaging that we get. I mean, I read somewhere the other day that we're exposed to 2,000 or 3,000 messages a day.
Yes.
So for your one message to get through somebody's, even past the eyes is quite difficult. So you just always got to be aware that media are wanting to sell space and you've got a different objective. So it's nothing wrong, that's their objective, but you've got to try and make sure those two objectives can both be met.
Yeah. And I guess one of the key things about when you're talking about mass media type advertising and promotion, it's that sort of being seen in that space is very, very powerful, because I don't know about you, but I typically, if I'm reading a magazine or a newspaper or something, I'm flicking and it's something that grabs my attention that's relevant to me, is what's really going to stand out as distinct from just the clutter of everything that is there.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a term we use called share of voice, or share of attention, if you like. You could almost call it that. Is if you're in a newspaper and you've got a full page and you've been in there for 12 weeks, or you've got the back page of a local newspaper or something like that, versus a little tiny one in the tradies directory. Yes. There's a difference there, but it doesn't mean to say that small ad can't be a good ad.
No.
But there's technology to how do you actually create that ad. Like you wouldn't have 15 different points in a tiny little ad. You'd have the one major point that you've already surveyed with your customers. So let's say you're a plumber and there's 15 plumbers in the local paper, and you're the one that's surveyed. We turn up on time and we clean up after ourselves, because they're the two things that people care about in terms of plumbers. And your ad states that turn up on time, clean up after ourselves, that ad's probably more likely to be effective for that audience,
Right.
especially if you've surveyed it. So you want to make sure you're matching with what's needed,
Yes.
and measuring. Like
Okay.
if people ring up, oh, I need a plumber, blah, blah, blah. Oh, where'd you hear about us? Oh, in the leader newspaper, for example. Awesome. And if you've done 100 of those questions and you've found that 58 of them were from that leader newspaper ad, then it doesn't matter how much you pay for the ad, as long as it's, you don't need to cheat. You don't need a cheap ad, it's working.
Yeah.
A cheap, ineffective ad is just, it's not cheap at all. It's costing you time and money.
One of the things, and you touched on an interesting point there about hitting those buttons in the ad, is that many of those tradie type ads that you see in the directories, that are often in the leaders and the various local newspapers, typically it's all about oh, hi, I'm Fred, I do this, and here's my phone number, and they expect people to come and buy from you.
Yeah.
Is there sort of a formula that that the tradies might use to actually stand out, or is it just being creative?
Certainly there's a creative, obviously have it nicely designed, and the balance of the ad size and headlines and all that sort of thing. The main thing that makes an ad stand out for someone is it hits the button.
Yeah.
If it's there's orders of things that you can do in an ad, a phone number and I do this. That's the basics. But let's say plumbing, it's I unblock drains. But if he's found that people in surveys hate the fact that plumbers walk in with muddy boots or something like that.
Yes.
And he says in his ad, we leave the mud at the door or something cheeky that matches the button. Your bathroom will be as clean when we leave as it was when we arrive, for example. There's a really cool plumbing franchise called Tap Doctor.
Oh, yes.
They're plumbers.
Yes.
And the way they differentiate themselves is the guys turn up in a blue chambray shirt, really well done, and they've got their name on here, which is Dr. Pete or Dr. Bob.
Okay.
They clean up after themselves. They put down wherever they're working, they put down a floor thing to keep everything really tidy, and they don't leave rubbish there when they're finished. And they've built a very successful business nationwide on teaching every one of their franchisees to do that. So that doesn't mean, a local small plumber can also do the same if they find out that something is really important to people.
Yes.
It drives me nuts if I'm a busy guy. If somebody says to me, oh, we can turn up sometime between 9 and 12, well, that's no use to me.
Yeah.
What about between 9 and 10? I'm happy to sit around for an hour waiting for you, and then they don't turn up. So, they're the sort of things, and I think tradies, if they're a small business owner, could understand those things and do something different to what everyone else does.
If you're looking at the mass medias, so you've got radio, you've got TV, and a lot of small business owners think that TV is beyond their scope, and possibly in city environments, major city environments it is, but certainly in regional environments not necessarily the case.
No, that's true.
Are there any of the sort of those particular medias that you would suggest are better for certain types of things?
It's probably tricky to say. Certainly if you're in a regional area, regional TV can be quite inexpensive. But again, it's the case of inexpensive or expensive doesn't really matter, as it works. And it's only going to work if you've planned what you're going to say to your customers that matches what they're telling you they need.
I guess what I'm meaning more is that with the different types of media, are there more specific reasons why you might select a type of media as distinct from one another?
Yeah, it depends on the competitiveness of the market, like who else is advertising as well. We've done some work in regional Australia, and you might be that no one's advertising a particular type of service, so you might go into that media because you'll stand out more. If no one's on the radio promoting their bricks and pavers, for example, then radio would be good if you can be, own that space. But if there's 10 accounting firms on the one, on Gold FM, and you probably would try something different. I favour one-to-group marketing, which is a lot of the referral type marketing that you can do. So we put a lot of our customers in contact with local community clubs and organisations, because a lot of community clubs like the footy club or the soccer club or whatever are always trying to raise money. They're run by volunteers who have little time and who basically have this model of, well, let's see if we can get $500 from 10 of the guys in town, we'll have enough money to buy the uniforms.
Okay.
But there's ways that you can set up, strategies where you go to the club and say, well, any one of your members that comes and deals with us, we'll give them X amount off, and we'll give you an amount of money for everyone. This becomes more of a partnership rather than just sponsorship, because now you're saying, well, you're bringing us customers and we're giving you support, and then you can work something, and that can be very inexpensive because you're not paying anything if you don't get any customers.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely. In terms of all the, look, there's marketing, there's so many different tools that people will use.
Yeah.
Are there any sort of key ones that stand out from, the people that you've worked with, the surveys that you've done, that sort of are the more effective marketing tools that the smaller businesses can actually use, which are cost effective?
Yeah. Probably the number one most cost-effective tool that any small business can have is a database.
Wow.
And that is to keep a record of every customer that they deal with,
Yes.
and a record of that customer's spending patterns or
Yes.
needs and wants,
Yes.
and then to communicate to their existing customers.
Yes.
What we find a lot with small businesses, they're always after the next customer,
Yes.
the next new customer,
Yes.
particularly in service industries like insurance or that sort of thing. It's sort of, where's my next customer coming from, you know?
Yes.
And in fact, they've got this gold mine sitting there who has already dealt with them, and if they haven't upset them, they're probably willing to deal with them again. And yet we found in our benchmark that very few of businesses are communicating regularly to the existing customer base.
Yes.
And it's so easy with technology now. If you collect their email address and you get their permission to send on a particular frequency, so you're not sending more than they want, but even once a quarter or once a month, you send them a note saying, oh, this is what we've done this month.
Yep.
Keep in communication with them. Give a specific special offer for people who've dealt with you before.
Yes.
So reward loyalty.
Yes.
That's probably the most untapped resource in small business today, is the people who've already dealt with you,
Yeah.
not the next one, because that's 10 times more expensive to get.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look, I totally agree with you. I think in the previous interview I mentioned my wife and I have got a gift shop in the Yarra Valley, and one of the key things that we do, we just run a simple competition. And it's the most cost-effective marketing we've ever done.
Yeah.
We give away 2 $45 gift hampers each month, and then each year everybody whether they've won a hamper or not, they go into a prize for $250 gift voucher in time to spend in Christmas.
Yeah.
What we do is we add around about 100 to 200 new names to our database every single month.
Wow.
And then each month we send out a newsletter which tells who the winners were for the previous month and announce whether we're doing something different. So we might have artisan in the window, or we might be doing whatever.
Yeah.
And the number of people who come back just through that communication, and with things, we use a tool like MailChimp to actually send out the emails, which is great because MailChimp is one where you're not hit as hard, I guess, from the spamming in inverted commas, because they're recognised as a database marketer.
Yes.
And it costs nothing. Once again, so it's very, very cost-effective marketing.
Yeah.
And I think most of our listeners and viewers would be interested in referral marketing, because we all know that's the cheapest form of marketing you can get, but you've got to do it right.
Exactly. Yeah. Word of mouth referral marketing is the gold standard for any small business.
Yes.
There's 2 parts to marketing. One is the promise.
Yes.
The promise is advertising. The promise is the sign on the outside of the business.
Yes.
All these things are a promise,
Yes.
but delivering on it is something that small business needs to get better at.
Yes.
Because once you've made a promise, if you don't deliver on it,
Yep.
Somebody walks in going, it's classic. I think I saw a movie the other day where some guy was joking about the fact you see like an ad for a hamburger,
Yes.
and it looks all beautiful and the lettuce is all sitting really nicely, and then you go in and buy the hamburger and it's this mushy little whatever.
Yep.
And I won't mention the brand; it doesn't really matter, but they're all the same. It's like that's not delivering on a promise. The promise is this.
Yes.
There's always So the success of a business is related to how well they create a want, or what promise they put out there that people are attracted to, but more importantly how they deliver on it, because the delivery then feeds out into one customer can become 3, can become 9. It's almost ridiculous how quickly those maths can add up if you really look after a customer. Hence the database being a very, very cheap way of doing it. And collection of emails and mobile phones.
Yes.
This is not to say that you will ever use them at a massive volume. You might only do it once a month. But those two things move with customers.
Absolutely.
If you have a street address or a landline, they change.
Yes.
People move, and
Yeah.
if you haven't communicated to your database for a while, plus the email is virtually free. I mean, it might cost you $20 to send it out to 500 or 1,000 customers.
Yes.
And some will unsubscribe. Don't worry about it. A lot of business owners that I talk to get afraid of communicating with people because they say, well, we get all these emails, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but if your email's relevant, they are a customer, and you're sending it at the frequency that they've agreed to.
Yes.
They've said, I'll have it once every 3 months.
Yes.
They're not going to complain because it's an agreement.
Yes.
Plus, you've got this communication line between you and somebody who already knows who you are.
Yes.
And if they're satisfied, then they'll refer.
Yeah.
So it is a far cheaper way of marketing than the radio or TV we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
Not to say that can't be a part of it, but it's like the goose that laid the golden egg. If you're communicating with existing people who like you, and you can get them to buy more and more regularly, wow.
So, I mean, in our shop we use the competition as a tool to gather that information. Are there any other sort of simple tools that that you found that really work for the small business owners to actually gather those names?
Yep, is to get people to fill in every time when they first purchase. The first thing they do is you collect the data, and you might have an incentive for that. It might be a $10 voucher for the next time they shop, or it doesn't really matter what you give them to actually do it. Make sure that they understand that you're not going to spam them with multiple emails every single day, because that'll drive most people nuts, but at a reasonable frequency. The other way to do it is obviously if you're delivering, if you happen to have a product versus a service. If you've got a service, you want to make sure you collect that anyway. If you were to say you're mowing lawns for people, you could through summer you could be mowing the lawn every 2 or 3 weeks, but if you don't keep in communication with the person and say, oh, are you ready for another mow or whatever, then you're going to waste opportunities for income. Community connections is good. Get the community engaged to market on your behalf. You may not get access to their database of members, but if you're dealing with the fundraising coordinator, then that's one person you can communicate to. Here's the offers for your members this month. Then that's another database that's out there being used. Collaborating with other businesses. I think small businesses could do more of that, because you're not competing with the guy next door who's different service but same customer.
Okay.
So you could combine 50% each towards something that you do together.
Okay.
Collaboration's awesome. Yeah.
So actually, something like an accommodation venue collaborating with a restaurant or a tour or something, those sorts of things. Okay.
Exactly.
An accountant collaborating with a financial planner. I mean, it happens already, but if they're local and they've got a big accounting practice up the road that seems to be impossible to compete with, combine forces with someone else.
Yeah. I guess then, as you said, even if they don't share their respective databases, they can actually go out with a combined deal to both their databases, and that doubles or could even triple the impact of opportunity for both businesses.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a customer who does brick and paving here in Melbourne, and he collaborates with about 50 or so tradies who install it. So he gives them a lead, they give him their business. Because leads is the number one thing that they want.
Absolutely.
He also collaborates with a pool company, because the pool company puts the pool in, but then they need the pavers around the outside. So he'll always promote or give them an offer that they can give to their customers. So it's a really good way of small businesses appearing bigger, because they're collaborating with other like-minded people running a small business where there's no competition.
Yeah. And I guess the thing from my perspective as the potential customer, it makes my life so much easier. I don't have to go around chasing 10 different people to get a job done. I can come to the one person who can coordinate all of that for me.
Exactly.
And a powerful service for me, the customer. All right, Hunter, well, thank you very much again for spending some time with us and talking about these elements of understanding the differences between the media salesperson who's looking to sell you something and you actually getting something that's right for your customers and attracting those customers in through the door.
Yep.
Fabulous. Thank you. Cheers.